All right, let's do this. The Behringer Model D is a circuit-accurate recreation of the classic Mini Moog from 1970. It has all of the original features, like its 3 super fat oscillators and 24 decibel per octave ladder filter, with a few extra little features for added flair, and it's certain to get your vintage vibes tingling. Wow, 20 seconds, that's pretty good. Let's get on to it! Okay, so as you heard from the intro, this is super fat, just like the original. It has the same kind of synth circuit architecture with a few extra little things that they added for kind of modern design purposes. It's got a very similar design language, almost the exact same layout from left to right. The knobs feel super solid and the switches are very nice and clicky. I really like the color scheme. It's a little bit different from the original, but I actually really like it. It's got an all-metal construction and some wood end caps. What this has over the original Mini Moog Model D is this has MIDI and USB, which were really only present on the reissues of the Mini Moog. This also has high and low outputs for any kind of mixing or recording situation you might find yourself in. If you're familiar with the Mini Moog layout, then this will feel instantly recognizable to you. You can just dive right in. It feels very quick and easy to create with. And what I like is that, just like a lot of the other Behringer recreations of retro synthesizers, this does not have any preset memory, and this particular one does not have any kind of MIDI control. It is all hardware controlled, which is excellent because that makes recording with this thing a huge pain, which I actually kind of like. I like the kind of the difficulty of recording with something that you can't control with software other than like for notes. So tweaking parameters in real time is excellent, fantastic, love it. Obviously, it's quite a bit smaller than the original. The original, I would not be able to fit in the frame of this camera, even if I zoomed out all the way. This thing is quite small. It's Eurorack sized, so you can mount it in a case with your other modules, and it's semi-modular, which is a big old thumbs up from me. Has an 1/8 inch headphone jack, not a 1/4 inch, just to note that, I guess, if you need to know that. So let's dive into the sounds it can make. Let's get to oscillators. So here we have 6 different wave shapes per oscillator. Let's sweep some range real quick. So we have a low mode, which is almost like an LFO mode. It's really low. Like that's how low it is. So then we go into 32, 16, 8, 4, and 2. And then let's get into our wave shapes. So that was the saw wave. Let's start from the beginning. Here is a triangle. And here is the famous shark tooth. Here's the saw again. Here we got a straight up square wave. And here we have a slightly smaller square wave. Since there's no continuous pulse modulation kind of deal with this, it's just 3 different square waves. And then here's the thinnest square wave we have. So we have 3 oscillators like that. That's oscillator number 1. So I'm going to set number 2 to 16 and we will see how that sounds, blend it in. So yeah, this one has a fine tune, and so does oscillator number 3. Oscillator 1, just like the original, does not get that functionality. So now let's set number 3 to 8, and let's blend that one in as well. And just for the sake of consistency, we'll do all of them at a sawtooth wave. Yeah, so obviously that's getting super fat, super quick, and we haven't even turned on the built-in little distortion effect. The original was known for its, I guess, accidental overdrive effect. The way they designed it, the output was really hot and they didn't mean for it to be, but at that point they had already started production and they were like, all right, screw it, that's just how it sounds. So we get a little bit of that with this one because the external in volume is already pre-routed to some kind of output. And you can also use a patch cable to route the main out to the external in, and you can get some even crazier distortion with that. And we're gonna experiment with both of those right now. All right, so first we're gonna start with no patch cable, and we're just gonna go sweep the external in volume on some notes here. All right, so this is at 0%. Let's go 50%. So not really noticeable a whole bunch, just gets a little darker. Then let's go maybe to like 60%. Now we're starting to hear it a little bit. 75. Get a little bit of that crunchiness. Let's go like 85, 90%. Now you can really hear it, and if you want to go crazy, it just kind of goes insane at 100%, and that's just with the pre-configured routing. So now let's throw a patch cable in, and this is where it gets like insane. All right, so we are having the main output routed into the external input, and it gets crazier a lot quicker with this way. So we have it at 0%. Let's do a quick sweep. So yeah, obviously a little crazier. So let's do it 0% again. Do 25-ish. So that's kind of like 75 on the last setting. Let's go 40. That's like 100% on the last one. Let's go 50. And then maybe let's go 60-ish. That's when it starts getting a little uncontrollable. We'll go 75, 80-ish. And now we're like barely even getting notes. Let's just crank it to 100. Yeah, I mean, you can't really tell I'm playing more than one note there, but I am. So I love that. I think that's kind of funny. Oh, and I guess one thing I forgot to mention about this guy is that you can, like the original, use the tuning oscillator. So it gives you a triangle wave to tune your oscillators to, which is really, really handy. I love that. So that's really cool. I love that. I think that's a really handy feature to have. All right, so that has been the oscillators. Now let's go into the filter, because that is another crucial component of the original that Behringer had to get correct in order for this to have any merit to it whatsoever. So we're gonna go back to one oscillator and we're gonna do some filter sweeps. Here's cutoff completely closed. Probably can't even hear that. If you do, you have crazy hearing. Now let's do a sweep. And that's at 0 resonance. Let's go to 2. Let's go to 4. One thing you'll notice is that it does get significantly quieter when you increase the resonance on this guy. Let's go to 6. Let's go to 8. And let's go to 10. Even at 8, you get that really nice self-oscillation of the filter. Beautiful, beautiful. And now let's put it to the true test. No oscillators engaged, just filter. Can we do some self-resonance here? And it's even freaking better if you put on the keyboard control, because then you can play the filter. That's so fun. And then I guess there's also the high pass filter, which I will demonstrate right here. All right, so this time we're gonna start at 10 and go all the way down. And now we'll go to 2 on the resonance. Now we go to 4. Now we go to 6. Now to 8. And to 10. Beautiful. And like I said, there's also keyboard control for both the filter envelope and the filter itself. And then there's also some different modulation stuff in here, which is super fun. You can modulate. Actually, I'm going to show you one of my favorite things to do with this. Let's turn it back to low pass mode and crank up these oscillators again. One of my favorite things to do, let's see if I can recreate it here, is That's one of my favorite things, is basically it ties the noise oscillator to the pitch of, I believe for oscillator 3, or maybe it's the master pitch. And then also, just like the original, you can unhook oscillator 3 from the keyboard control and use it as an LFO, which is awesome. Yeah, so this thing can make a bunch of crazy sounds that the original can and also cannot. Now let's listen to some cool music that I made with it. All right, so that'll do it for the sound demo portion of the video. Now we get into the good part, the review. So let's talk about what I like about it. Pretty much everything, honestly. The size is great. It's compact. It's significantly smaller than the original, and also if we're comparing it to the original, way less expensive. I mean, we're talking like what? I don't know, I haven't looked up mini Moogs recently, but my guess is like $15,000, $20,000 or something, as opposed to you can get these new for $300 or used for less than $250, $225, somewhere in there. I think the sound is great from, I mean, obviously I've never had the pleasure of playing an original, but I've heard them played, and this sounds pretty dang close, if not right on. It definitely feels like an instrument. I think that's something that I've heard a lot about Moog synthesizers, is that they just feel like a real instrument. And I actually have a real Moog synthesizer. It's that little black thing that you can't see right there. Review coming soon. That's going to be fun. But back to the fake Moog. I think the design is really great. They obviously made it quite a bit smaller than the original, but without sacrificing usability. Like, while the knobs are pretty small, they're easy to get to, and there's no knob wobble. The switches feel really good. Build quality is excellent. And I guess that kind of leads into something that I noticed about Behringer products in general. They kind of either fall into the cheap category or the inexpensive category. The difference between the two kind of being the quality, really. So cheap being some kind of piece of junk that, I mean, it's like, I guess usable, but probably not gonna last super long. And like longevity was not really a factor when producing the thing. Whereas inexpensive falls into kind of the bang for buck category, where it's like, I paid $200 for this, but it does not feel like a $200 instrument. It feels like more than that. And that's definitely the category that I feel this falls into. And I've had plenty of Behringer products that fall into both categories, honestly. I think as far as the synthesizers that I use, especially like the reissue synthesizers, from what I've heard, from what I've tried, all that stuff, I think most of them are probably going to fall into the inexpensive category. I've had the pleasure of now owning this and also the Crave, which I did a review on, and both of them feel like very, very well-built instruments. They don't feel like a $200, pile of junk that was just thrown together and is, it kind of like a watered down version of the original. Like, no, this is the real deal. Like this, it sounds good, it feels good. I have very few complaints about it. I think one of the things that I'm not fond of, although I don't know, it may grow on me. Maybe, again, I have just been spoiled by my Korg Prologue, but the knobs are, they're quite stiff. Like turning them, there's a lot of resistance to them, especially the smaller knobs. And I don't know if that's just kind of like a fine-tuning thing, like maybe they didn't get it quite right, but I don't know, they just feel a bit stiff. And another thing is the kind of chicken head knobs. They also feel, I don't know, they don't feel quite right. They're tactile, but not quite in the right way. So, I mean, I'm not complaining about the knobs. There's no knob wobble whatsoever, which is excellent. Like that, I mean, that's already sold. But I think just some fine-tuning things like the tactility of the chicken head knobs and the stiffness of the knobs is just a little off. And again, I've been playing a Korg Prologue where the knobs are the best I've ever felt on like any piece of electronics that I've ever had. They're like the right stiffness, there's no wobble, they're the right size, like it's just perfect. But anyway, back to this guy. I think one thing that I really, really like about this, that I feel like a lot of companies are getting wrong, I'm looking at you, Roland, is that when we reissue synthesizers, don't add a whole bunch of crap that nobody wants to them, okay? This adds very, very few features, and the things that it adds are very useful. I feel like they make it a usable instrument in the modern age. Arturia, all right? The sound design is great. I've been using the V collection for months, and I am infinitely grateful to have my hands on like every retro synth I have ever wanted. One of the things that I think they really, really got wrong, that this might just be me, I don't know, this is my opinion. I think there is too much added to them. I kind of was going into it wanting more or less an original experience with the instrument, and like even some of the stuff that makes the instrument hard to use, like the fact that this doesn't have presets, like I kind of love that. But I think something that Arturia has done that I'm not a huge fan of is that you have the ability to increase the polyphony of something, or add digital effects to something, or there are all these controls that the original did not have that the recreation has in the V collection. And I don't know, I feel like it's cool, it makes it more interesting, maybe it makes it more versatile, but I don't know, at the same time, I think if you are trying to recreate the original experience of an instrument, you also need to include the things that made it hard to use. Like, the Juno 106 only had 6 voices. Like, cool, I mean, that means you have to be creative with the chords you're making. And it only had 1 oscillator, so again, cool. You have to be really, really creative with how you're using it and its chorus effect and whatever. Tangent aside, that is what this has done right, is this has added just the right amount of features to make it a modern instrument without going overboard and fixing all of the original's flaws. This thing still has some character, some texture, some grit to it that I really enjoy. And I think I really like that they made 2 versions of this. They made the Model D and the Poly D, and they kind of have the best of both worlds, where if you want kind of more of an original experience, you get the Model D, whereas if you want kind of a more modern experience with more polyphony and more controls and everything, you get the Poly D. And I think they did that right. Like, there's something for both audiences, both for people who want an original experience and for people who want somewhat of an updated experience with the instrument. And I am sure I'm gonna get like a billion comments, half of them being like, dude, you're stupid, man. Like, all the new instruments that are coming out that are remakes of the old ones, like, that have new effects and stuff, like, that's just bringing it into modern times, and that makes it, literally just a technically better instrument. And then the other half of the comments is gonna be like, thank you, I'm, I'm a 1970s synthesizer guy, and I like the experience to be every bit as hard as it was back in the day. So feel free to comment your opinion. I'm sure someone is going to agree with you, whether it's me or not. All right, so that's been my review and demo of the Behringer Model D. I think this is overall a really fantastic synth that could belong in 1970 or 2018 or modern times, obviously, because I still love it. Highly recommend picking one of these guys up for all of your monophonic analog synthesizer needs. Super fat, super big, gets distorted really righteously. Very compact, can fit in any kind of synth setup that you want to throw it in. It's a great addition to any setup, really, whether you're doing ambient or super heavy industrial music. This is your guy. Built super well, sounds super good. It's kind of pretty similar to an original Mini Moog, so it's about as close as you're gonna get with modern hardware without paying the Moog premium. I'd give this guy overall a 9.5 out of 10. Very solid score on this guy. I think this is going to find its place in my studio setup, and it kind of already has. So thanks for watching. Hope you liked the sounds I made with it. Hope you found it helpful. If you did, please subscribe to the channel. It would be very much appreciated. And if you liked it a whole bunch, then you could consider subscribing to my Patreon, which is only $1 a month. Little goes a long way to support me, and you get extra content, which is kind of a win-win. So thanks for watching. See you next time. Stay safe, healthy, and make some cool music. See ya.